world is changing, and so does change. But the mind has the potential to capture the changing world and make every change count. At Skills Mindset, the leading global skills, strategy and corporate development company, we believe that the mind has the potential of transforming the man from obscurity to prominence. It's the reason why we make skills our business. At Skills Mindset, we stand for change, for development and for success. We challenge, we inspire and we lead. With Skills Mindset, your limit is just the beginning. Welcome to Skills Mindset. For more information about the great service we provide, please visit our website on www.skillsmindset.com or give us a call on our UK number on 07957 676 193. Better still, send us an email on info@skillsmindset.com. Skills Mindset. Challenging limits, maximising opportunities.
This is another day of the Skills Mindset Masterclass monthly live, masterclass. We are here again at this moment. We want to just get ourselves and our viewers, audience, to settle in while we are prepared, and our speakers, and then of course the panel is ready for the presentation tonight. So everyone, everywhere you are joining us from, we warmly welcome you to this month, early July, Skills Master Masterclass. So you are all welcome joining us live, and to those who will be watching the replay across, our platforms, we are thrilled to have you with us for another transformative session of the Skills Master Masterclass. As always, we pleased to share. Please share with us where you are tuning in from, where you're joining us from. Please just send us the city and the country in which you are, perhaps your name, so that we can adequately acknowledge your attendance and presence. And to those who will be watching the replay, you are equally welcome. And then, let's make it interactive. Let's make it a moment where we learn together, where we share experiences and skills, and of course, what is in it for us today. So please, today marks another awakening moment as we embark on a journey together to explore the power mind resource, guided by experienced experts. This is a fantastic opportunity for skills development, business progression, professional growth, and leadership for all. Today, our focus is on a crucial topic, that can significantly influence not only our performance, not only our business, but can impact even, our daily life. So, improving personal branding and strategic leadership. This is very key, which we key to what we are trying to do, and through the innovation to stay ahead of the curve. We will delve into today's topic, which we title Cybersecurity as a Business Enabler, turning risk into competitive advantage. What does this mean? That's why we're here. This session will explore high performance strategies designed to boost brand visibility, shift value creation from reactive to proactive protection. It is tailored to help businesses, entrepreneurs, marketers, and growth leaders willing to make cybersecurity their business enabler and differentiator, and make a significant impact in their services. Our guests today are highly skilled professionals in cybersecurity, businesses, and of course, strategic operations. Please join us in welcoming Mr. Babatunde Falode and Mr. Bolaji Ajayi as co-founders of Maya Tech Consulting, a cybersecurity consulting and training organization. They both possess a strong background in business and data security. Their mission is to guide individuals towards successful careers in cybersecurity. I hope I've really represented you very well in that regard. However, I'd like to say, Mr. Tunde Falode, this is your second time you are featuring on this monthly live Skills Master Masterclass. So we want to really welcome you again to this place, to this platform, because your nugget and your tips last time was very impactful, and then that's why you have to do it again. So you are, I believe you are an accomplished security architect with extensive experience in infrastructure architectural function. He has been responsible for designing and implementing information systems that align with business, infrastructure, and initiatives. Mr. Babatunde has expert knowledge in planning, designing, and delivering, secure solutions within an enterprise environment. His primary focus, though, is on helping businesses maintain their confidentiality and integrity of their data throughout the organization and implementing effective IT security measures. Once again, we extend a warm welcome to Mr. Babatunde Falode as he joins us this month's Skills Master Masterclass. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm so much delighted to be back here. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Now, Mr. Bolaji Ajayi, the corporate guest, our second guest tonight, is graciously is the first time he's featuring on the live Skills Master Masterclass. What a privilege to have you on board today. And then, of course, we cannot wait to hear what experience and information you'd like to share with us, particularly what you've been doing and how we impact our lives and our businesses. So I also know that you are a highly experienced cybersecurity consultant specializing in governance, risk, and compliance. He has extensive experience across various industries with a specific focus on the financial services sector. Mr. Bolaji is skilled in defining and implementing risk migration strategies and optimizing internal controls to enable an organization's cybersecurity posture and improve operational efficiency. We are pleased to warmly welcome Mr. Bolaji to the Skills Mindset Masterclass. Mr. Bolaji, you are just welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I look forward to tonight's discussion. Thank you.
Lovely. I'm just going to, while our, listeners and viewers are settling in wherever they are joining from, we have, this is a live event that is being streamed on YouTube as we speak, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. Okay, so those three platforms are live with us as we do this. And of course, our audience are across the globe, some joining in from Australia, from Canada, from America, from Nigeria, and other parts of Africa. And so we expect diverse clients and audience. And of course, that your presentation, I believe, will be so robust to attract, interest from all these continents or this geopolitical divergence in terms of audience that we have. So while they're settling in, I would just want, Mr. Babatunde, maybe we should ask Mr. Bolaji to go first to just share with us about himself, as Mr. Babatunde will also follow, about yourself and your current project. What are you doing and why are you doing it at the moment? Just in a brief note so that people can then settle in. So while you do that, Mr. Babatunde will also tell us what it's all about. I know both of you have joined, you're partners in business, Maya Tech, isn't it? I was corrected last time. So I made sure that I wouldn't call it the name I called it the last time. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. So, Mr. Bolaji, what have you got for us? Who are you?
Oh, thank you. So, as you rightly said, my name is Bolaji Ajayi. I am a cybersecurity consultant. I've worked as a cybersecurity consultant for the last 20 plus years. And in your introduction, you mentioned the fact that I work in the governance, risk, and compliance space, and that's exactly what I do. So I've worked for a number of financial services organizations, doing various types of roles. But ultimately, the end game is to ensure that organizations have robust controls in place that will protect them from the threats that exist in the digital world that we live in today, protect these organizations, and ultimately help them ensure that their data, their assets remain protected. Like rightly said, myself and Mr. Falode are in partnership. So we both co-founded Mayatech Consulting, of which, of course, Mayatech Academy is one of the arms of the organization. We founded this organization, I think, coming up to 2 years now. Yeah. The organization has a number of objectives. One, we work with a number of clients who, in a way, have, especially small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses that cannot typically afford to have a cybersecurity function internally. So they engage us to help them define cybersecurity strategies, help them with understanding what controls they need to put in place to protect the organization from the threats that are out there. And when we talk about threats, of course, we're talking about internal as well as external threats. And by external threats, I'm talking about threats that come from the internet, for example. So ultimately, we help organizations with defining what their security strategy should look like. And for organizations that have a strategy in place, we talk to them about how they can mature their security posture. The ultimate goal, like I said, is to ensure that every organization that we engage with has a mature security organization and a very good security posture. On the other side, we also run a cybersecurity academy where we have a number of course offerings. And as part of that academy, we've trained numerous students who have now gone on to gain employment in the industry as cybersecurity consultants. Again, the academy has been running for the better part of about 2 years. Both run by myself and Mr. Falode. Of course, doing different. So we have a number of course offerings. So I take some of those courses. Mr. Falode takes the other half of the courses. But ultimately, what the academy, and one of the things that we see about the academy that we're really proud of, is the offering that makes us different from every other cybersecurity academy, which is the hands-on approach that we have applied to our teaching. And if I may expand on that a little bit more. So you have, there are a number of cybersecurity organizations out there, and there's no doubt in that. And what these organizations would normally do is train students, churn them out, and set them out to go and look for jobs. Where we are different is that we have a hands-on approach to our theoretical classes. So on a Saturday, we teach our students about the theoretical part of cybersecurity. And on the Wednesday or the Thursday, depending on the module that they decide to take, we get our students to actually practice what we've taught them in the class on the Saturday. So as you can imagine, when our students then graduate from our academy, they come out job ready. And what I mean by job ready is the fact that they don't just have the theoretical knowledge, they have the hands-on practical experience, which is very important, especially if they were to land a job. So that practical experience serves two purposes. One, our students are able to talk to what they have done in the past, which of course every employer likes to hear. And when they eventually get a job, what they'll be required to do, the task they'll be required to perform on day one will not be alien to them, because some of these things they would have covered in class. And that's how we think we're different from most of the cybersecurity organizations that are out there. I know I've spoken quite a bit, so I'm conscious of time. So I'll hand over to Mr. Falode to say a few things. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I know. So 1 second. I know. Yes, you've said a lot, and I believe the last time Mr. Falode was there too was actually pinpointing most of the points you have raised, and of course signposting us to, or in terms of getting our attention to the services that you provide, and how important that is to not only to corporate organizations but also to private individuals, and
Sure.
that is key when
Yes.
we're talking about this. And that was well delivered the last time Mr. Falode was. So, but before Mr. Falode could tell us more about himself and, of course, what he's doing, I also want to acknowledge our co-host tonight, the person of Mr. Anthony Adeshile. He's also a friend, partner. We are together in the Skills Mindset as an organization, and also this is also our monthly program that we run together. So Mr. Anthony is here. He's gonna give us a few words before we do your presentation. But while we're doing that, I want Mr. Falode to tell us, yes, anything different from the last time you were here? What has changed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, my host. Good evening, everyone. Which part of the world you're listening from? Thank you for attending this session. As you know, my name remains Babatunde Falode. I work with different business organizations. What has changed since I've been here is I continually evangelize cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a passion for me personally and for us as an organization. We always say that we want to get as many people into cybersecurity as possible, and we demonstrate that by our passion and by our delivery. And that is why the discussion we're having tonight not only interests us as an organization, it will help organization, especially as the core of our function. So anybody in cybersecurity would know that risk is a big part of what we do, risk assessment, and how organization would leverage that and turning that into competitive advantage is what we've been preaching in the last 2-3 months, working with organizations how to not only identify risk within their business function, how to turn that into an edge over their competitors. And I'm hoping that at the end of this session tonight, people will be more wiser on how to use cybersecurity as a business enabler, and hopefully will be able to, if you like, get that competitive edge. Any organization would crave to have that edge over their competitors. So how cybersecurity will help deliver that will be the core of the discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I trust your delivery when it comes to what you do. You're so passionate about it, and I think that's a key thing to that is obvious and noticed. Thank you so much for that. And it's not a wrong place to be here tonight, as you're going to be sharing experiences around how we can use cybersecurity, to enhance what we do, our performances, our business, and particularly to gain trust and confidence of our clients, and of course to ensure that our staff to colleagues are protected, whichever way. So Mr. Anthony is a co-host, and then of course he will be taking it from here from me, as he will also launch you into your presentation. Mr. Anthony. You're muted.
Muted.
Yeah. Let me just use this opportunity to welcome speakers tonight. I mean, I see this masterclass, tonight's masterclass, as an opportunity. Business is all about opportunity, isn't it? And I'm quite excited at the way you've come across your introduction about what you're doing, and the consultancy, the academy, and everything. And since tonight's discussion is all about enabling business and cybersecurity being the focus, I see this session helping a lot of people to clarify their business objectives and how cybersecurity as a foresight will help them to be able to gain more advantage as they go on in their businesses. So yes, I'm quite excited. I have a lot of things to learn, and I believe that many of our viewers also will be looking forward to hearing from you. Cybersecurity is something that everyone knows to be quite important now. I mean, recent experience with the cyber hack, Co-op and Marks and Spencer tell so much about the need for businesses to be more circumspect, especially in relation to protecting data, protecting not just data. Their core business also needs protection. Mr. Bolaji talks about internal and external, which is all about competitive advantage. If you are going to gain competitive advantage, you need to be able to exercise control over your internal and external, objectives. And cybersecurity, I see as an opportunity to do that, especially now that everyone is taking information online as against the traditional offline method. We will be looking at how you will clarify objectives for us going forward. So yeah, you are very much welcome to this masterclass, and we would then want to hear from you now about what it means for cybersecurity to enable businesses, and also that area of risk that Mr. Babatunde talks about. Risk management is important, and I'm always about competitive advantage. If you're a business, I mean, if you have a business and you don't know anything about competitive advantage, I mean, you haven't actually started business, because very soon you are going to close shop. So yes, we're really going to be keen to know how cybersecurity will help us going forward. Thank you. So, Mr. Bolaji, you are doing the presentation, isn't it?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, let's have Mr. Bolaji present the more or less the slide for tonight, and then we'll be able to go forward from there.
Sure. Thank you. I assume everyone can see what I'm sharing on screen.
Yes, clearly. Clean.
Okay, so let's kick off. So I think as part of your introduction, you touched upon what we're going to speak about today. So as you can see on screen, cybersecurity as a business enabler. Mr. Falode mentioned risk and risk management and how this plays out in the wider cybersecurity space. And the whole idea tonight is to talk about how we can turn risk into that competitive advantage that Anthony spoke about. Okay, so with having said that, we have an agenda. And with these presentations, it's always good to give people a forward view of what we're going to be talking about. So we'll start with introductions, and I think we can probably skip on the introduction, the 2 slides on the introduction, because I think you've mentioned the things that are on those slides. We'll talk about the traditional view of cybersecurity. So, and when we say traditional view of cybersecurity, we're talking about how people viewed cybersecurity maybe 20, 30 years ago. We'll then segue into how managing cyber risk can strategically differentiate one business from another. We'll then move into reframing cybersecurity as a business enabler. Then, of course, we will dive into the future. So we've been talking about cybersecurity as a differentiator. What exactly does that mean today, and what does that mean from a future perspective? And then we cannot do such a presentation without saying a few things about our organization, which we'll do towards the very end. And then we'll, of course, leave the floor open for some questions and provide the opportunity to give answers to those questions. So these are the introductory slides that I was talking about. I think, 2 things. In the interest of time and the fact that we've kind of done the introduction already, I think we will skip on this and then move straight into what we're going to talk about. So that traditional view of cybersecurity, okay? So one of the very and by the way, when you said I'm going to be presenting, it's going to be a joint presentation between myself
Sure.
and
Okay.
but of course I am driving because only one of us can do the presentation, right? So
yeah,
but both of us will be talking to the slides. So in going back maybe 20 years or even 15 years ago, cybersecurity was seen as a compliance necessity, which meant that organizations would only engage the cybersecurity function within the organization or an external cybersecurity organization because they had to meet certain requirements. And those requirements are usually legal requirements, regulatory requirements, or they might be in terms of trying to meet industry standard. That was the traditional view of cybersecurity. And the slide, as you can see, says cybersecurity is often seen as a compliance necessity because many organizations initially engage to meet these requirements that I spoke about, rather than to proactively manage business risk. And of course, in managing business risk, you gain that strategic advantage. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. So when we talk about compliance necessity, what exactly are we talking about? So we're saying that that compliance necessity was usually driven by regulations and not strategy. So organizations will normally implement cybersecurity controls to comply with laws, regulations. One of the very popular ones out there is GDPR, your General Data Protection Regulations, General Protection Regulation. A lot of organizations these days, especially organizations that handle personal information, are required to comply with the stipulations of GDPR. So some organizations will only do security. When I say only do, I mean do, quote and unquote, do security because they are mandated by certain regulatory bodies to comply with certain regulations. So GDPR is one of them. Sarbanes-Oxley, for those who work in the compliance space or those who work in cybersecurity will know about Sarbanes-Oxley. PCI DSS, which stands for Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, is a standard that drives the requirement to ensure that merchants or vendors who take online payment, for example, protect credit card information, debit card information, right? Or credit card information. That's what PCI DSS is all about. And now this compliance necessity usually comes about because of the fear of penalties, the fear of audit failures, or the fear of sanctions. These are the things that usually drive the need for some organizations to engage a cybersecurity function. Other than that, and if it wasn't because of reasons like these, a lot of organizations would not be engaged in cybersecurity. Okay. Check the box mentality. So security again becomes a checkbox or box ticking exercise just to pass compliance audits. Organizations would usually have very little integration between their security programs and their business goals. So they have their security program on one side, the business goal is on the other side. There's no link between the two. And really, that's how it should be. The security programs, the security objectives should be driving business goals, which doesn't happen or didn't happen then. The narrative is beginning to change. Investment through compliance. So again, one of the things that one of the necessities from a compliance perspective is again the fact that cybersecurity investments are often budgeted under risk avoidance or compliance overhead, which basically means that business leaders may see cybersecurity spending as some form of insurance rather than a value generating activity. This, of course, is one of the reasons why you find that your businesses will not usually take cybersecurity very seriously. This, of course, would then lead to a shortage of investment toward the cybersecurity function, if you like. The next bullet point says reactive rather than proactive. So companies would often react after a breach or or some sort of regulatory scrutiny rather than planning proactively. And that basically what this means is that where an organization is meant to spend to enhance their security, the cybersecurity posture, they won't do that. They would wait for a breach to happen. So typically what will happen is your head of cybersecurity will go to the business and say, you need to spend money to protect the organization. The business will say, well, we don't have any money. But as soon as a breach happens, guess what happens? Guess what then follows? A blank check is given to the cybersecurity function. Go and spend as much as you need to spend to protect us. And that is what we mean by the reactive rather than proactive approach. Then, of course, the last bullet points to fragmented ownership. So cybersecurity typically back then was a function that was owned by IT. And of course, IT, everybody knows that IT means information technology, with little cross-functional leadership or board-level integration. Now, without executive sponsorship, which is absolutely necessary for cybersecurity to filter from the top to the bottom, permeate through the entire organization, cybersecurity will not have, as we always say, the cybersecurity leadership team is never brought to that senior leadership table, right? So fragmented ownership, of course, meant that cybersecurity was deemed to be a function of IT, which meant that cybersecurity was not necessarily given the relevance,
the relevance
that it needed, right? And that is one of the biggest challenges that we used to face then. So compliance is important, and so basically everything that I said on based on that previous slide points to the fact that compliance is important, but it's not sufficient. I've just noticed that my laptop is about to die, so just give me 2 seconds. Let me plug my charger. Okay, so compliance is important, but it's not sufficient. Now, being compliant, we're saying here, does not equate to being secure. They're two different things. So an organization might be compliant with regulations. They might meet their legal requirements, but that does not necessarily mean they're secure. And security, like Anthony said as part of his introduction, is very, very important in the world we live in today, especially when we're thinking about business as an enabler. So organizations must move from a compliance-driven to a risk-driven and ultimately a value-driven cybersecurity model. That's where we're aiming. That's where we're hoping organizations will be going forward. So at this point, I think I'll hand over to Tunde. I don't want to take all the glory tonight. So Tunde, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Bolaji. Yeah. So we know that we've looked at the, if you like, the traditional, what is happening, the traditional view of cybersecurity. Now, how do we change that perception, right? How do we change that? So there's that message shifting, organizations feel the need that we must comply. And they are, if you like, they are, what's the word? They're so obsessed with that, and it shouldn't be like that, because if you go down the route of we must comply, then it's that tick box exercise that Bolaji mentioned, okay? So they should move away from that to we must protect and enable. So that perception must change to we must protect and enable. Now, involve business leaders in cyber risk decision. Now, this, and you'll find out later that cyber risk is an enterprise risk. It's a business risk. The moment cyber risk is isolated to cyber, then it becomes a problem. So the cyber risk is an enterprise risk. And if it's an enterprise risk, it then means it has the business leaders involved in that. And they're involved in making cyber risk decision. And where I work, when you look at the overall organizational strategy, when they're looking at their risk, you find out that cyber risk is brought to the board level in terms of enterprise risk management. Okay, So other thing is to showcase strategic benefit of cybersecurity, right? And you'll find that as we go on, and that's what we're heading to tonight, is how cyber can add value to organization. How can cyber and one organization take advantage of cybersecurity? Now let's look at an example of the attack that we had, that we mentioned, Marks and Spencer, and a few of those attacks that we mentioned. Now, Marks and Spencer was knocked off. I don't know if the system is still back up and running, but even if it's back up and running, they were out for some time. Now, I want you to think about the effect that would have over their competitor. So it's like two organizations in a race, and one gets attacked, then the other one would have that edge. So we need to showcase that strategic benefit of cybersecurity. Organization to view cybersecurity as a value added mechanism to the organization. Okay, and of course, compliance is good. It's very good, of course, but it should be used as a baseline. It's not the destination, is the point. So use cyber compliance as a baseline, but not the goal. So an organization should not then put as a strategic objective that they aim to, they're going to aim to be compliant with legislation. That should not be the goal. It's on a journey. It should be used as a baseline, not the goal. So next slide, please.
Can I just quickly say something here? I'm quite interested in the board level decision making for cybersecurity, because the cyber hack that's Marks and Spencer and Co-op experienced, there's something that came to mind, which is important when you talk about board level decision making. I understand that Co-op was not as affected as Marks and Spencer was. And that was because the moment Co-op saw the attack coming, they quickly made the decision to take their system offline.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, that's for them to be able to do that, they must have had a board level trust that would enable them to immediately make that decision. For other organizations, the delay would be because they had to get permission from one level to another level and another level. I'm quite interested in what your view is on that.
Okay. So okay, go on, Bolaji.
No, sorry. So I was going to say, so one of the things that organizations have in place. So let me take one step back. So no organization is 100% secure, right? Yeah. That's a fact. So what organizations would normally do is have plans in place that then mean that if they get hacked, they react in a certain way. And those plans are plans like your incident management plan, incident management process, or incident management strategy, which basically means if there's an incident, this is how we react. Okay. What organizations would normally have, especially where there's that link between the board and the guy who is right on the bottom of the chain, is you mentioned trust. So the trust is very, very important, right? So one of the things that would normally happen is when you define that incident management plan, as part of the incident management plan, one thing that organizations would normally have is a gold team, a silver team, and a bronze team. So the gold team will be the high level leadership team. The bronze team, the silver team, some people in the sort of the medium or the medium range in terms of management, and then the bronze team is usually the guys who would actually do the work. So what would have been defined as part of that process or that incident management strategy will be: we are giving you the mandate that if you see something like this happen, you pull the plug. Actually, I work for an organization, and one of the things that was defined as part of that incident management strategy, two things. The website was their number one critical asset. And the leadership team gave the the bronze team the mandate, and they said, as soon as you see from your logs or from your security operations center that we're being attacked and there's a potential that we might lose this battle, pull the plug. Right. So invariably what we're saying is we'd rather take our own systems offline than allow the cyber criminals to take advantage of weaknesses and own those systems. That's exactly what happened in the situation of Co-op. So Co-op understood that an attack was about to happen. Before that attack was successful, they pulled the plug. The difference between the Co-op attack and the Marks and Spencer's attack, unfortunately, is the fact that the Marks and Spencer's attack, the cyber criminals had actually gained access to Marks and Spencer's environment, and they were in the environment for a while. I don't know how long
they discovered. Yeah.
Yes. So they were able to see everything that was going on. They were able to monitor traffic. They knew where data was kept. They knew what controls were in place. They managed to stay under the radar for a long time. When they were now confident that now is the time to release the ransomware, which of course is what they did eventually, bang, they released it. So the difference between the two organizations is that Co-op was able to identify the attack while it was brewing, and they pulled the plug. In the case of Marks and Spencer's, the guys were already in their environment before they now deployed the ransomware. That was the biggest difference. But going back to the point you made around the business trusting, the business trust that is required, absolutely spot on. The business has to trust the professionals, the cybersecurity professionals, and say to them, when you see something. So where there is no trust, what would normally happen will be the fact that when such an incident is about to happen, especially in the case of Co-op, for example, that you need to go up the chain of command to get that approval before you do certain things. But they're giving them that the trust was there, and they said to them, as long as you're confident that this is what is happening, react in the way that has all, and of course that the agreement was already in place. So that and going back to that board trust, absolutely important.
Okay. The other question, I'm going to leave it for later, just for you to do your presentation. It's, with organizations now, now that most organizations have their information in the cloud. Obviously, there are organizations who have their own data centers and do not use cloud. But then, so we have those who use the cloud, those who have their data centers, and then we have these small businesses that you are also reaching out to, who do not have the privilege of owning a data center or using the cloud. So they are more or less dependent on the traditional web hosting services to run their businesses. So I'm going to be keen to know how in such scenarios cybersecurity can play a key part in helping these organizations to protect their information, especially when you mentioned websites. You talked about that, Bolaji. You talked about the organization whose main, more or less, key business unit is their website. So there are also small businesses who just run their own websites, and they take payments and so on and so forth, but they do not have any clue about cybersecurity or whether cybersecurity is should be part of their business modus operandi. So I'll be interested in you discussing in these areas later. Okay. Pardon me for interrupting.
No, that's fine. That's a question that Tunde would definitely take at the end.
Sure.
But I think maybe we should just flow through, and then of course
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. Okay. Okay, so again, people and we always say this, right? The difference between an organization that is matured from a cybersecurity perspective or cyber perspective is when you look at the line of command, when what's the relationship between IT and cybersecurity. So a lot of organizations view cybersecurity as an IT responsibility, right? And that is clearly wrong, right? And one of the reasons why it's wrong is, let me paint a scenario here. Say you have an IT professional, right? And a cybersecurity professional in the same department. Maybe the cybersecurity guy reports to the IT manager. And I'm going to be technical here. I just apologize for that. And there is the cybersecurity, the IT guy wants to configure the firewall to block certain ports. And if they do that, right, if they configure the firewall, it may stop some applications from working. Now you have the cybersecurity professional who thinks that actually those ports that he wants to allow through the firewall, right, is not secured, right? So therefore, you can't open those firewalls because it's not secured. So you have the IT guy who may be his manager. So you run a risk whereby the IT guy who is the manager overrides the cybersecurity person, right? And that is clearly an issue. And that is why cybersecurity, as it were, it shouldn't be an IT function, okay? Historically, when it first started, it was an IT, but it moved on, or it should move on. So you still find organizations where their cybersecurity is under IT. Now, if you find that, I can tell you clearly that the cybersecurity of that organization is not only immature, you find that that organization will not be able to take advantage of cybersecurity to leverage that for their own competitive advantage. So, cybersecurity is often seen as an IT responsibility because of its historical roots that I've just explained. And of course, there's that technical complexity, okay? Cybersecurity would have, it involves tools that they use to be able to do their function. So you need to be experienced in that. So if you now begin to offload those cybersecurity activities to IT, right? IT may not have the experience of doing that because it's complex in nature, right? And that is why if you continue to leave cybersecurity under the authority or responsibility of IT, then you're asking for trouble. Lack of business integration is a key one, right? Cybersecurity is beginning to change, right? Cybersecurity should be embedded in the business function. It can't be an afterthought. It should not be an added afterthought. Let's go practical here. You're developing an application, and things are beginning to change, but you're developing an application. Let's even go simple, a website, right? What would typically happen in those days, or if you like that traditional view of cybersecurity, they develop the website, and then they will call the cybersecurity guy. Guy, please come and check and see if there's any vulnerabilities on this website. Now, that is a wrong approach, because cybersecurity should have been involved from day one. And it's same scenario with the business application. So you have that lack of business integration, okay? And if you have cybersecurity under IT. Now, one thing that we would say, and we always say this, when we talk to our clients or to our students, is the org chart placement. Any organization where you see cybersecurity report to the head of IT, all right, I can tell you straight away for free that that organization is not only immature, is asking for trouble for the reason I explained before. So a mature organization, you'll find out that the head of cybersecurity would directly report to the board, not only to the board, they have a direct reporting line to the CEO. The reason for that is because cybersecurity, okay, should be given all the power that it needs. Going back to Bolaji's point of trying to pull the plug, off the website that if it gets affected. You can imagine if there's a process where you need to go and talk to the business is going to do all that. It will take time, right? And of course, the last point is incident-driven attention. You find that most C-suite, and Bolaji had mentioned that, you have that proactive nature, and that is dangerous. I can tell you, I'm sure what Marks and Spencer will be doing, that they'll probably be spending loads of money, right, on boosting the defense. When we say the genie is out of the bottle, right? So you find that organization they shouldn't be reactive but proactive. Next slide. Okay. Do you want to take this, Bolaji?
No, you take this and I'll take the next.
So now, perceived as a cost center. Now, this is a key thing, right? Most organizations believe, and I want you to think about it, especially from the business people listening to this seminar. Most business people feel that cybersecurity don't generate any revenue, right? And that is how it's seen as a cost center, but that is wrong, right? So you find, and when you have an argument, right, you can argue that there's no direct revenue generation from cybersecurity, but I like the word no direct, but there are indirect revenue. You go and ask Marks and Spencer tonight, find out how much they've lost financially, and not only financially, in terms of reputation that you cannot put a pound value to.
Yes.
Right. So you say no direct revenue generation. So organization or businesses may see cybersecurity, you're not bringing any money here, right? You're just a cost center, right? And because of what I've explained. Now, reactive spending pattern, we've explained that. Same thing. Is reactive. You shouldn't be doing that. Oh, we'll go and pump money in after the cat has bolted, right? And then sometimes it's difficult. Well, I would say it's difficult to quantify the return on investment, right? So you find out that cyber sometimes find it very difficult to justify why they're asking for. They sometimes have to justify their budget, right? And the reason why they're doing that is, what are you bringing to the table? They may ask them, what are you bringing to the table? The guy in the front, if you go and ask today, so the finance department may tell you, actually, we're more important than cybersecurity. And you ask them why? Because we've generated X amount of millions in a year. And they might pose the same question to cybersecurity, how much have you generated? But what they refuse to understand, again, go and ask from Marks and Spencer to earn that point, right? So I'm sure you understand what my point there. Another point is the lack of business alignment. Again, it's difficult, and sometimes difficult for them to align cybersecurity activities to businesses. Sometimes difficult to do that. But do you need to do that? Maybe there's no need for that. All right. Cyber compliance-driven approach, we've already mentioned that as one of the things that cybersecurity is seen as. So I don't think cybersecurity should be seen as a cost center or as an unnecessary expense. And we'll find out later as we go on with this presentation. Next slide, please. Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to take this one today?
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Okay, so in the world that we live in today, this hyper-connected world, the lines between digital operations and the core business functions have become really blurred. So there's no longer the confinement to the IT department. Digital risk is now a business risk. Again, like Tunde said a few minutes ago, go and ask Marks and Spencer. So digital risk today, it is very clear that digital risk is business risk. So anything from your customer experience to your supply chain integrity to financial performance, brand reputation, all of these things that I've mentioned all relate to the incident that has happened recently, and not just Marks and Spencer's, the big organizations before them that have suffered one sort of cyber attack or another. So cyber attacks, data breaches, system outages, regulatory compliance are not just technical failures. They are events that can disrupt operations. They can erode customer trust. Talking about customer trust, we as individuals, right? So say there's a specific e-commerce website that you normally go to buy stuff from, okay? And it's a go-to place when you want to buy certain types of items. And then all of a sudden you hear on the news that this website has been hacked. And by the way, your credit card information that was stored on that website was taken as part of the data that was stolen. And subsequently, you find out that you have now become a victim of identity theft. So the data that was stolen was sold, and whoever bought that data has now used that data to go and perpetuate some financial fraud. When that organization that was hacked, where your data got stolen from, when that organization now comes back online, I am sure that most of you who are listening on this, listening live, or those who will listen to this later on, will say you would never go back to that organization to patronize them because of the experience you've had. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. Every time a cyber incident, a cyber attack, data breach happens, customer trust is eroded. Cyber attacks also attract, believe it or not, legal penalties. And one of the biggest things that happen is the share value of the organization will become decimated. The share price will tank, it will drop, because shareholders will begin to get jitters, they get cold feet. You know, if this can happen, what else can happen? These will have a direct impact on the value of that organization. And these things usually have a ripple effect across the entire customer base. Okay. Now, it goes without saying. I think it was Anthony who mentioned earlier on that historically organizations had their data stored in their local data centers. Now data is being stored in the cloud. Invariably, what we're saying is that the attack surface has expanded. When organizations had their data stored in their data center, there's this thing we used to say then, we knew what our perimeter looked like. So it's like you have a house and you have a fence around it. You can easily say that this is my house, this is my fence. I know the level of security that I have to protect my house from burglars. That is your traditional data center. So your perimeter is clear to everyone. You know how to manage it, you know how to secure it. But when data now starts moving into the cloud, that perimeter becomes blurred. The attack surface has now expanded. That is a big issue. And that is why where the organization's data that you would normally sit in their data center is now being hosted in the cloud, that data, which we refer to as your digital data, going back to the topic on the heading of this slide, digital risk is a business risk. The attack surface has expanded. Your digital risk is no longer a risk that is confined to the IT department. It is now a business risk. And the last bullet point says business leaders must therefore shift their mindset. I think we've labored this point enough tonight. But the one thing I would say is that cybersecurity is not merely a defense tactic or a compliance checkbox, right? It is a strategic enabler of resilience, a strategic enabler of trust, and it brings long-term value. Again, you know, I don't want to label the Marks and Spencer's point too much, but that's the latest latest cyber attack that, you know, carried a lot of weight recently. So organizations in the world that we live in today must recognize this reality, and they must embed cybersecurity into their governance, into their culture, into their strategy. And organizations that do that will be better positioned to ensure that the confidentiality of the information is maintained. They will ensure that they can respond swiftly to threats. And believe it or not, they can gain a competitive advantage. It goes without saying. Okay, so we've been speaking about board level and business alignment. Now, cybersecurity, and like I said before, it can no longer be viewed as a purely a technical issue. The board has to be involved. there has to be business alignment. We can no longer say our cybersecurity issues are delegated to. I think there's a bit of background noise. I don't know where that's coming from. We cannot no longer say cybersecurity is now an IT issue and it should be solely the responsibility of the IT team. Absolutely not. It has evolved into strategic imperative that requires active engagement from the top, from the board, from the executive leadership team, all the way down. Now, in an organization, and I think Tunde mentioned this earlier, right? That in mature organizations, where an organization is mature on their cybersecurity journey, you'd always have board level engagement. There's a saying that goes, I think it's practice what you preach. So if we as an organization want our shareholders, our stakeholders to believe that we take cybersecurity very seriously, that message has to come from the top. If the message is driven from the top, which we usually refer to as a top-down approach, if that message comes from the top, the board has said, we in this organization will take cybersecurity very seriously. We are setting the tone from the top. Trust me, every function within the organization will take cybersecurity extremely seriously. So, sorry.
Yeah, Bolaji, I just want to focus on what you've just said, because Tunde also said something about IT responsibility.
Yeah.
I think he was saying that organizations that sees cybersecurity as IT responsibility is taking a wrong approach.
Absolutely.
And so, but what we do have, for example, when we talk about health and safety, health and safety in the organization is everyone's responsibility.
Yes.
Okay. But how do you think cybersecurity can also be everyone's responsibility and not just management responsibility or IT responsibility and so on and so forth? Because from the way cybersecurity is going, and with the aggressive nature of hackers and all, I believe that it has to be everyone's responsibility.
Absolutely.
And training should factor into the process. Organization buy-in should also be key to this, because if everyone does not buy into the process, if the internal structure is compromised, then obviously the external will be compromised, because we do see that happening internally. Staff members abusing the internal structure that tend to compromise, because some hackers, obviously, they don't just gain access, they gain access through employees, isn't it?
Of course.
So if you just want to say a little bit more on that.
Sure.
Do you want me to-
Do you want me to take that one? I'll leave the technical one for you. The one around the.
Okay.
You're the technical guy. Let me take this one.
Okay.
So you made an absolutely valid point there. When you said cybersecurity should be everyone's responsibility. Now, most organizations today, well, actually, let me start from the end user, right? There's one thing that we say in the world of cybersecurity, that we humans are the weakest link. Okay, so an organization can go and spend millions buying the best security controls, the best security products, the best security tools out there, and implement these tools, right? If your users or your employees within the organization do not understand what the responsibility is from a cybersecurity perspective, all of those millions that would have been spent will be a complete waste of money. And I'll tell you why. So you can have all of these controls implemented. All it will take is for one employee to receive one phishing email, right? And then click on that phishing email. And guess what? All hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose, right? So organizations today, in fact, most organizations, when you join as a new employee, will tell you that there are a number of mandatory training programs that you need to go through. Cybersecurity now is one of those mandatory training programs that you need to sit through. And those training programs will tell you what your responsibility is from a cybersecurity perspective, the things that you're allowed to do and the things that you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to do the things that if you do could compromise the security of the organization, right? And so that message is now being filtered, from the top. Hey, cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility, and everyone is required to play their part.
Yeah.
So from, believe it or not, you walking into your office in the morning, using your badge to gain access to your building, and then holding, being the nice guy that you are, holding the door for somebody else who's coming behind you so that they can come through. These are things that you get told that in itself can compromise the organization from a security perspective. So if you see somebody trying to tailgate behind you, politely ask them, can I help you? Who are you? Do you work here? Try and establish whether that person works for that organization or not. And if they do, why don't they have their badge? I mentioned phishing. And there are a number of other examples that I can give that would point to the fact that security is everybody's responsibility. And of course, going back to the point that I made initially, spending millions, but still leaving your organization exposed to these cyber criminals. And that's why in the world we live in today, it cannot be overemphasized that every employee within the organization has a part to play in securing the organization's assets. I hope that answers your question. Okay. All right. So there's a bit of background noise. I don't know where that's coming from. Okay, so where are we? So Tunde, was this you or was this me?
You've covered this. You've covered this one.
Oh, I've covered this one. Okay.
So you've covered this one.
Ultimately, board level oversight, business alignment, transform cybersecurity. Will transform cybersecurity from we spoke about cybersecurity being okay, I didn't want to do that. I beg your pardon. We spoke about cybersecurity being a cost center in a lot of cases. So basically what we're saying here is that board level oversight, business alignment will transform cybersecurity from being a mere cost center into that competitive advantage that we're looking for. And this, of course, will foster trust with customers. It will foster trust with partners. It will ensure that it will keep our regulators happy. And of course, while strengthening the organization's long-term success. Okay, so that was the traditional view of cybersecurity. Now, what we're going to do is move into what we've dubbed reframing cybersecurity as a business enabler. And so, basically, what this means is that we're looking to shift the mindset from seeing cybersecurity purely as a compliance burden or a cost center, like we said before, and to viewing it as some sort of strategic asset that will ultimately drive business value, will drive growth, and this competitive advantage that we've been talking about will drive that as well. So here are the things that you can do as a business to reframe cybersecurity and convert it into a business enabler. So one of the very first things that we evangelize is that cybersecurity must be aligned with business objectives. It goes without saying. Sorry, did somebody want to ask a question? Okay. No. So this bullet point says, show how security supports core business goals like innovation, customer trust, market expansion, and operational resilience. Now, every business that has been set up will have an objective. most organizations, the ultimate goal is that bottom line. They want to make money for the organization. They want to make money for their shareholders, right? That will be the business objective. Now, when we align cybersecurity with those objectives, it brings untold amounts of value. Operational resilience being one of them. And I'm just going to pick that one out of the many points that we refer to here. So in the world we live in today, Anthony mentioned data in the cloud, right? Where we have our operations, well, actually, let me take a step back. Our operations today are digital compared to many years ago when we had, our documents were mainly physical, so paper-based documents. When we talk about operational resilience, what we're saying here is that the ability for an organization to continue operating in light of an incident, a disruptive incident. Now, if a business has an objective of delivering services to customers and ultimately delivering value to shareholders, but there's a huge reliance on their digital operations. If a cyber incident happens and this digital infrastructure is no longer available, I struggle to see how that organization would then be able to deliver value to their shareholders. And that's where cybersecurity comes in. Cybersecurity will help define what resilience should look like. And ultimately, if an incident happens, because the resilience has been built into the entire cybersecurity operations, one incident will not knock that business offline. Resilience will kick in to ensure that that business can continue operating as they would have, despite the fact that an incident has happened. And that's one of the reasons why we say that cybersecurity should be aligned with business objectives. And the example here says secure digital services enable new product launches and customer experience without risk. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Let's move on to the next point. So we're talking about shifting from risk avoidance to opportunity enablement. Now, instead of us focusing on just preventing breaches, and I think it was Tunde that mentioned it when we're talking about, or maybe I mentioned it, board level engagement. We move away from the position where all we're trying to do is prevent breaches from happening. We're looking to move away from ensuring that the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of our data is maintained, is not compromised. That position should shift. We should move away from that position to ensuring that cybersecurity can be used as a means of accelerating growth in an organization. Yeah. Very important. Anthony mentioned cloud, and of course the topic of cloud will keep on coming. And that example, as if you knew what we're going to talk about tonight, enabling cloud adoption. That is an opportunity. That's a way by which cybersecurity can bring that enablement. The fact that where some organizations today actually are moving to a position where they say cloud first. So everything they do today has to be cloud-based. Either they're looking to procure a SaaS-based solution, or their operations should be cloud-driven. That is one of the areas where cybersecurity can come in and ensure that business cybersecurity acts as a business enabler. Enhance customer trust and brand reputation. So I think I've spoken to this already, but again, where you have two organizations, and it says that builds customer confidence and loyalty, differentiating brand in a competitive market. So in the world we live in today, no organization can operate in isolation, right? Organizations will always need to engage the services of other organizations. So we as an organization, for example, will not be able to do everything that we need to do without engaging some third-party organization, right? Now, if we we're in competition with two or three other organizations. We're looking to deliver services to one organization. So an organization is looking to procure a service. So three organizations, ourselves included, are looking to deliver. We're part of what is known as an RFI RFP, okay, where you will assess three vendors to determine which one of those vendors you want to go with. An organization that has cybersecurity at the forefront of what they do will definitely, most certainly, win that business. Why do I say that? An organization that is able to demonstrate that cybersecurity, I'm trying to find a very, very good way of saying this. An organization that is able to demonstrate that cybersecurity is at the core of everything they do. So cybersecurity wasn't thought of, is not an afterthought. It is built into other operations. We'll be able to demonstrate to that vendor that is looking to procure the services that, hey, we know what we're talking about from a cybersecurity perspective. And in addition to that, an organization that has certification, and when we talk about certification basically is an independent audit of our cybersecurity controls. So when we have an independent company come in and do an assessment of our cybersecurity posture, and we've given a tick or a green stamp that says, from a cybersecurity perspective, you guys are great. Those kinds. So if we were in competition with two other organizations that don't have their cybersecurity house in order, most certainly we will win that business. And that is what we refer to as cybersecurity. One of the reasons why we say cybersecurity can be a business enabler, especially in a very competitive market. Tunde, do you want to take the next one? I think you're on mute, Tunde.
Okay, yes, I can. So in this one here, so we say, and I'm going to talk about when organizations want to.
Sorry, I think I moved the slide. I think I moved the slide ahead. Sorry. Oh no, I didn't. Sorry. Yeah,
okay, no,
go on.
So when organizations want to engage other businesses, right? You find that one of the things that they look out for is regulatory compliance, right? And Bolaji mentioned a point. So we want to engage with a business, right? And if I'm able to demonstrate to that organization that we are compliant with this well-known certification, right? We're able to demonstrate that, then it's more than likely that we would get that engagement compared to an organization that can't demonstrate that they've met that requirement. We're having a discussion with someone this evening about third-party risk assessment and the advantage of that. And we were talking about ISO 27001, which is a certification that an organization can use to demonstrate that they've met this level of security controls, i.e. security requirements, to demonstrate that they follow these good practices. Now, if as an organization, Mayatech wants to go to goes to Marks and Spencer, for example, and say, we want to engage with your business, one of the things they will be looking for is, can you demonstrate to us that not only are you compliant, you've actually met XYZ security control, right? And if we're able to demonstrate, to show that certification to them, then we're more than likely get that engagement. And that is how we as an organization can gain that competitive advantage over our competitor. So if you say, so an example, being compliant can be a prerequisite for contracts with large enterprise and government. As simple, that's clear as anything else. And sometimes you see, when you look at RFIs, for example, one of the requirements there may be you need to be ISO 27001 certified. So if you're not certified, what are you going to do? You're not going to bid for that contract. And that is how you can, this regulatory compliance can be, you can use that to gain competitive advantage over your competitors. Next slide, please. Okay, we've said it, drive operational resilience. Simple, right? If I'm able to demonstrate to organization that our systems are compliant, they are resilient, right? and what do we mean by that? Say, for example, you have a website that has been attacked, right? And once that website is attacked, that's it. Their services goes down out of the window, right? Nobody can access any of these services. Then it means that organization is not resilient. So you find that organization typically would have resilience in place. They double up on everything, not having a single point of failure. Now, if we're able to demonstrate that, in fact, we don't need to demonstrate that. If we have that as a capability as any organization, then it means that if you get attacked, at least you'll be able, right, to, you'll be able to sustain or maintain your services during that outage. Let's go back to Marks and Spencer as an example. We'll keep using Marks and Spencer as an example. Can you imagine if when the adversaries attacked or got hold or got their foot in Marks and Spencer's infrastructure, and maybe they were able to maybe they have another data center somewhere, right? And they're able to restrict the attack to one particular area of the organization, right? And imagine them coming out and say to the outside world, we were attacked, but fortunately, we're able to continue our services in this data center in China, as an example. Then that would build confidence in the end user, right? So a robust incident response plan. And going back to, I think when we're talking about the difference between an organization that is prepared and the one that is not well prepared. A robust incident response plan. So you have organization may have what we call a playbook. A playbook will be if we get attacked by, if we get a ransomware attack, this is the playbook. This is what you need to do. Now, organization that's able to demonstrate that to either to their businesses, to other businesses, or to their regulatory, to any regulatory body, then that organization stands a chance of not only remaining resilient, but in the event of an attack, they'll be able to reduce the impact of that attack, and that's what it means. So, having an incident response plan prevents costly outage and reputational damage. Reputational damage is key. You can't actually put a pound value to a reputational damage. And this is one of the things that organization can put in place to be resilient, to gain competitive advantage over their peers. Okay, next one.
So, can I just
yeah?
Does it mean that Marks and Spencer's system is not cloud-based? Is it? Are they managing their data centers themselves?
Okay.
Because I mean, the reason why I'm asking this is because the cloud is robust. You mentioned being able to have the organization's data, not just in one place, but being also replicated in different data centers. That's what I believe the cloud is able to provide. So could you just
without knowing about Marks and Spencer infrastructure, I would almost certainly say to you that they will be resilient in terms of the infrastructure. But one thing I would say to you though is when you look at this, when you look at threat adversaries, this is sometimes what they do, especially when they've landed on your network months and months before you're aware of it. Sometimes what they do, especially with ransomware, what they'll be looking for is your backup, right? They go and look for your backup. So it doesn't matter where your backup is. That's one thing they try and look out for. They encrypt your backup, right? And then they attack you. So of course, what do? You run to your backup. The backup is not there, right? So it's possible, and I'm going to say this carefully, it's possible that some organization would have that playbook and know the modus operandi that your attackers or ransomware attackers would maybe want to attack their backup and then have plans against that. Does that make sense? So
Sure.
the infrastructure will be resilient, but of course, you still need to have a playbook. You need to have to plan ahead so that your adversary don't get your asset before you have the chance to protect it. I don't know if that's the question.
Yeah.
Okay. So next, okay. So enable, yes. So we call something and secure by design. So in cybersecurity, secure by design is a very known term. And what does it mean? It basically means that you embed security at the early stage of any development. So if we are developing a website or developing an application, the moment the thought of developing an application, that is the point where you want security to be involved. It's a thought, not even starting development. Oh, I want to develop an application to do, first thing, get security involved in that. And once you do that, once you involve security early on, and we call it the secure by design principles of practice. Once you involve security, then you have a high chance that security is baked into that product, right? And not only would it ensure or give you the assurance that the product is secure, you find that it helps your time to market. It ensures that you are able to not only be innovative, to build a secure product. And of course, once your product is secure, it builds your customer trust in that product. And of course, it helps your competitive advantage over your, competitive advantage. Okay. So next one. Quantify. Yeah. So it's again, when we were saying something earlier on, organizations should know how to quantify, right, the value that cybersecurity brings into the business. You must be able to do that. Otherwise, you won't win the argument of where businesses would say that cybersecurity don't generate any income. They just spend. But that's not quite true. Let me give you an example. If we want to put a value to cybersecurity in terms of business metrics, again, I'm going to bore you with this, but go back to Marks and Spencer. You can almost argue that if the cyber attack had been prevented, right, then you could say that the financial loss would be the value of cybersecurity to that organization. Does that make any sense? So things like reduce financial losses, increase customer retention. I will not go to a website. If I go to a website and that website doesn't have a secure key, I would never buy something from that website. So they've lost me, right? So if you have a website that has got a secure key, secure certificate versus the one that hasn't got one, which one would you go to? I know the one which I will go to. So you find out that not only does it increase customer retention, you also have faster time to market. So reporting on risk reduction in financial terms helps executives see cybersecurity as an investment. It is an investment. And that is what we do. When Bolaji and I talk to our clients, to different clients, that's what we bring. You need to see cybersecurity as an investment, not a cost center. It's not an expense. Yes, you're paying the money, you're buying the firewall, you're buying the tools, you're buying that. But think about what could potentially happen if you don't invest in that. I don't want to know. I wouldn't want to let you know what the adverse effect of that can be. So that is why quantifying cybersecurity from a metric. So in summary, cybersecurity is not just about preventing threats. It's about enabling business growth by safeguarding innovations, building customer trust. A trustworthy customer will come back, and ensuring operational continuity. So turning risk into competitive advantage. We always know, we know this. Even in one's life, risk is good. As long as it's measured, right? Risk is good. So if you don't venture, for example, if you are worried about what is happening out there, going out of the house is a risk, right? So if you say it's risky out there, you're not going to go out, then you're not going to make money, right? So risk is good. but organization needs to turn that risk into competitive advantage. Next one, Bolaji. Do you want to take the next one? We can quickly go through this case study, yeah? Or do you want to go through or want me to go to? You're mute.
Sorry. So yeah, sorry. I was going to say we have a case study here. So Apple. So in the world we live in today, we all know that there's a lot of digital surveillance happening. There's targeted advertising. So you know, people always say that you speak about something, you go onto Facebook or you go onto Instagram, and lo and behold, the thing that you were talking about just a few minutes ago has appeared on your timeline, and you think, how is that happening? One of the things that Apple has done, which has ensured that it has gained competitive advantage, is it's positioned itself as a privacy-first company, right? So a lot of organizations today will not just assign their users with a laptop or a desktop. A lot of organizations are now assigning mobile devices to the organization, to the employees. And you find that a large proportion of those organizations that have decided to give their employees mobile devices, which of course enables them to carry on working on the go, have given them Apple devices. When you go and check, a lot of companies will do Apple devices rather than an Android device. Don't have the statistics to support it, but this is a fact. And this is because Apple has positioned itself as a privacy-first company. Apple, in comparison to its competitors like Google and Facebook, and I think this is an open secret, right? Their business models are based on user data. They use user data to drive advertisement, user data to for all sorts of things. That's what their business model is based on. Apple have decided to take a different approach. And it is that different approach that is one of the reasons. In fact, I think up until maybe a few years ago, Apple was the most valuable company in the entire world. One of the key reasons why that is the case is because of the approach that they decided to adopt, make it a privacy-first company, which means that cybersecurity is baked into every one of their products very, very well. When we hear about systems being breached, and I know there's a big argument about the number of iOS devices compared to the number of Microsoft devices. But when you hear about the number of devices that typically have the highest number of vulnerabilities, you'll usually find that it's a Microsoft device that has the highest number compared to an iOS device. And by iOS, I mean an Apple device. That is solely because Apple have taken cybersecurity very seriously. And it is for this reason that they, up until recently, like I said, they were the most valuable company in the entire world. That is what, so Apple had taken and continue to take cybersecurity and use that to enable their business, which of course, again, without trying to bore you guys, is one of the reasons why it's a very, very valuable company in the world we live in today. So what has Apple done? Apple, a number of things. So their strategy, their security strategy, they've implemented something known as app tracking transparency. And this was introduced into the iOS version, I think, version 14.
14.5, I think.
14.5. Okay, thank you. And basically what this says is that Apple devices require apps to ask permission before tracking user activity across any app or any website. This, guess what, resulted in billions in lost ad revenue for their competitors, like Facebook, for example. Privacy nutrition label. So all apps in the App Store must disclose what data they collect, how that data is being used. Basically, what they've done there is they've simplified transparency for their customers. On-device processing. So things like Face ID, Siri, and all the other services that you have running on your iOS devices, they use on-device processing instead of cloud-based computation, which of course ensures that the amount of data, so the data that resides on the device, which is not uploaded to the cloud, means that there is very limited data exposure. Of course, if the data exposure is limited, the attack surface is reduced, and the potential for a data breach is heavily reduced. Secure enclave and end-to-end encryption. So hardware level security and end-to-end encryption protects sensitive data, like the data that is used by Face ID, the passwords, and all of these kind of things. So these are the steps or the strategies that Apple implemented to ensure that security is at the core of everything they do, which of course has meant that when I say at the core of everything they do, is at the core, and they've used that as a business enabler. Again, going back to what I said before, which is one of the reasons why Apple is a very valuable organization. So some key lessons. Privacy and security are trust signals. What we're saying here is any organization that takes privacy and security very seriously will be trusted by their customers. Privacy and security are not just legal obligations, and they shouldn't be seen as legal obligations by any organization, right? They are trust signals. Any organization, so I think Tunde mentioned earlier on around certification. So any organization that takes that additional step to get certified, ISO 27001 is one that Tunde mentioned. That basically means that they've invited an external organization to come and do an assessment of their controls. And if that assessment has demonstrated that the company has implemented controls appropriately, then that sends out the right signals to their customers that, hey, we can trust you with our data. So when a company embeds cybersecurity into their products, into their brand, they will definitely gain a sustainable competitive edge, especially in markets that deal with high sensitivity. So organizations that operate in the financial services industry, organizations that operate in the healthcare industry, and even organizations that operate in the education industry, where there's a high level of data involved. An organization that is able to demonstrate that security is at the core of what they do, and these organizations that operate especially in the high data sensitivity space will definitely forge ahead in what they do. So some key enablers. Tunde, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. So security by design, or secure by design, we've already explained that. Embedded security into development and operations. Again, it just means that the output on that, the product that you're delivering is secure, and every organization will be part of that. Where I work, we follow secure by design principles. Risk-based approach. Again, we've always said security is not cheap, so therefore we prioritize controls aligned to business risk appetite. And it also helps organizations. If organizations are able to prioritize their control, it just means that they can spend efficiently and effectively, right? So because otherwise they'll just be spending money on, they haven't got the money. So a risk-based approach would help enable and help them attain their much desired competitive advantage. Board level engagement. I won't talk too much about that. Cyber is a strategic issue. It's not technical. It has to go from top down. Metrics that matter, right? So we need, and we have that. We have KPIs linked to the business. So we should be able to, and any business leaders listen to this evening, you should be able, not only should you appreciate what your cyber is bringing to the table, you should then map that to your business outcomes. So if, for example, you've made millions of pounds a year, you need to be able to attribute that and say your cyber initiative have helped you achieve that, and justify the amount of money you're spending on cyber. If you do that, there's no doubt that these are key enablers to helping you as an organization attain the much desired competitive advantage. And next one, the future. But do you want me? Okay.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So what's the future? Cybersecurity as a differentiator. That's the difference between a fantastic company, a company that is doing well, and a company that would go down in a few years, right? You gain competitive advantage through faster market entry. You are able to go to the market, especially going back to the secure by design principle that we spoke about, right? If you embed security at the early stage, it just means that the faster time to market will be quicker, as opposed to afterthought. Because I want you to imagine a product that it's been developed and designed and ready to go to market, and security comes back and says it's not secure. It means you have to start all over again. We can't have that. Enhance trust, partner trust. I think I don't know if it's Marks and Spencer or one of this one here. You know how they got? I think it's Marks and Spencer actually. It was third party, I think. So the adversary came in through the third party, right? So you can gain advantage through enhanced partner trust, and the reverse is also true. Does that make any sense? So if you are you have a secure and robust infrastructure backed up by certification that we've spoken about, then you can wear that badge proudly that we are this, we are that, and you can help when you're putting your marketing material together, when you're going for businesses, when you're trying to win a contract. That would definitely give you the edge that you crave. Better customer experience. I won't talk too much about that, other than the fact that I will not go to any website that has got drive-by antivirus.
Malware.
I won't go back there again. Malware. We won't go back there again. So, and I'm sure that you either people would have gone to a website and they got infected by that, by just going to a website. That would be a poor experience. And then, of course, the stronger M&A positioning. That's your due diligence as an organization. Okay. So, call to action. Reframe cybersecurity in your organization. So, if you don't know, you know now. Cybersecurity, moving away from cost center. It's not a cost center. It's a strategic enabler that drives business innovation and competitive advantage. So it's not a cost, right? They add value. You need to remember that. Cybersecurity into innovation processes is not a day-to-day operation. It's not cybersecurity stopping attack from coming in. No. Cybersecurity would ensure that that product that is being developed, that is set out there with a reputation of being secured, will bring tons and tons of revenue to your organization. And you have to remember that. So communicate the value of cybersecurity effectively to the board, right? So as an individual, as a business, for example, we at work, we have the buy-in from the board. They know that without cybersecurity, okay, they're in big trouble. And I'll give you an example. I'll just digress and give you an example. I remember when I used to work, this is a long time ago, where the head of the college, she hated the gut of cybersecurity. She doesn't understand what it was about. And then in the end, we really got attacked and she lost her job, right? So she didn't understand the value of cybersecurity, and that didn't filter her down. So we need to communicate the value of cybersecurity to the board, executive, and most importantly, to your customer. Okay. And next one. Okay. Do you want to take?
Sure. So I think that brings us to the end of the topic that we're going to talk about today. And we're hoping that we've managed to, or we've been able to convince you that cybersecurity should be seen as a business enabler rather than a burden, which a lot of organizations see it as today. So a bit about Martech Consulting. And I think we mentioned this right at the beginning, right? So we have a consulting arm where we work with a number of organizations that would not normally be able to afford to have an in-house cybersecurity function, but of course need cybersecurity. So we provide advice, we help implement, and basically everything that is necessary to help the organization protect themselves, protect their assets from cyber criminals. We help them do. And like we said before, we also have a training academy where we train. In fact, I think our logo is training the cyber warriors of tomorrow. So one thing that I think we're really proud of as an organization, and I'm referring to the academy specifically, is the fact that we've been able to impact a lot of lives. So we've had people come from different walks of life. We've had nurses, business analysts, security guards, funny enough, who have gone through our academy and have been able to gain employment in the cybersecurity space. So on screen, of course, you can see our contact details. We have our email, info@mindsetconsulting.com. Please go onto our website if you can to see what we're all about. I'm sure that any questions you have around either the consulting or the academy, the consulting arm or the academy, you'll find answers on our website. And of course, if you wanted to have a conversation with us, you have the numbers on screen that you can use to reach out to us. And that brings us to the very end. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. And I think I'll hand over back to Dr. Gbenga and Anthony. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. This has been really, it's been quite informative, and I believe that a lot of people would now have better understanding of cybersecurity and how it can influence better confidence on the organization's function. Just a quick question. Obviously, you did say that, from what you have said, we all see that, like you said, cybersecurity should be part of the business strategy of the organization. Better still, before any project starts, it's important to factor in cybersecurity into the process so that the system can be better secured. So they also mentioned that cybersecurity is not cheap.
Yep.
So that brings me back to the initial question I asked earlier on when I talked about small businesses, where you have one-man business, two, three businesses that are just, struggling and just trying to, start earning something. With regards to that, obviously, they do not have the luxury of either owning a data center or many of them wouldn't even think of using the cloud because of the cost factor there. So it's either they rely on the traditional web hosting platforms, which I believe you would consider to be unsafe, isn't it? So how do you think businesses like that can be able to still bring in cybersecurity into their business function? Because I always talk about foresight for businesses. If you are starting businesses, it's best to start right. And I see that cybersecurity is part of what needs to be factored into the business strategy before launch, actually. So how do you think businesses can bring in cybersecurity given the scenario that I've mentioned?
Okay, I'll answer that. And I'm glad you mentioned that. But now, cybersecurity is not cheap, right? So you find that because it's not cheap, we have what we call risk assessment, risk-based approach. Now let's go back to a small business. A small business might be maybe an accounting firm. Now, what you have these days, right? What we will not advise. We wouldn't advise a small company to have maybe a box of server in their server room and then install. We wouldn't advise that because, again, it's not cheap. You need to maintain that, and you need to maintain that. You need to, you need to back it up. You need to maintain that. But you have provisions, a cloud-based provision. They're not. I would say they're expensive, right? Cloud-based provision where they can still put resources and go for a SaaS provider or go to the cloud and buy services within that, right? But having said that, they will still need, right? They will still need that advice, right? You can't just buy the services and off you go. So what I would advise, and this is the best way to do it in my view, is any small organizations like that, even if it's just to set up that, even if it's the advice, right? That, okay, we have an application. An application is web-based, right? We're going to put it in the cloud. Ultimately, we're responsible for the security of that. But in terms of configuration and getting it secured, you can engage an organization. And I'm going to say like us, a small organization who would come and work with you and say, actually, this is the, if you like, advice. This is what you should be thinking about. Even if it's that initial engagement and say you want to put your resources in the cloud, this is the question that you need to be asking. For example, how is that provider backing up their data? Where is it backing up their data to? Is there encryption? All these security questions that you can ask, and then you can then give that as a package, and they can then use that to go and then engage any vendor and say, this is our security requirement. Because otherwise, you'd have to engage a cybersecurity professional on site. You're not going to be able to, because professionals are not cheap, right? So you can engage organizations like ours or similar organizations who would help you do that initial review. What security should be like. And I think that is much better than you provisioning a server, because if you then go and buy servers, for example, you won't be able to get the advantage that cloud services offer to you, right? So, and that is the difference. So I would say, yes, cybersecurity is not cheap, but engage small companies who can advise you on how to set that up, and then put a package in place. And yes, you might pay a bit of money for that, but in the long run, it would allow you to gain that competitive advantage. Because if you get attacked, right? Now I won't go to, yes, you're a small company. I will move my accounts away from that accountant. I'll go somewhere else if I find my data slapped on the internet because it's been breached. So I don't know if that's answered that question.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's all right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Are you talking now, Tony? You're muted.
Sorry, another question, and I'll hand over to Gbenga.
Okay.
With organizations who migrate to cloud services,
Yes.
obviously, the cloud providers would have their own security in place. I know that, for cloud services, there are different types. There is the infrastructure, platform, and software as a service. But now, what then should do organizations also need to now source for enhanced cybersecurity in addition to that which the cloud provider will provide? That's the question I just need to add. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So just to say, the cloud provider is responsible for the security of the platform.
Security. Yeah.
Of the platform. You are still responsible for the security of your data.
Right. Okay. So that clarifies it. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. You're still responsible for your data, and that is why you need organizations like us to help you, advise you. So you're still ultimately responsible for your data. So the platform would provide the security of the platform, of that, but for that data, you're still ultimately responsible for that.
Okay. All right, Gbenga, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I guess that was incredibly brilliant, well delivered. Thank you so much again. Note that you've got a lot to talk about, but we are also mindful of our time. And I want to appreciate the co-host, Anthony, but he has to get into another engagement at a minute. But while we are rounding up, there are people who have joined us, tremendous people, committed audience, or maybe people from Facebook, from LinkedIn, from YouTube. But they also threw in so many questions. I'm not sure how you're going to deal with that because of our time as well. Maybe you have to touch on one after the other. Shout out to people on YouTube, also Facebook and on LinkedIn. I have Dari Shonaya from YouTube. I have Paul Anthony Skerrit from LinkedIn, and then Facebook as well. Shikolu all the way from Nigeria on Facebook. So there are a lot of people here, and there are so many questions. Again, I just believe that even though our time is fast spent, but because they've stayed to this point, I think it's just a kind of value to add to them and respect and their questions and their participants tonight. So I won't talk too much about it, but this is one of the questions from Paul Anthony Scary. He said, how can an organization build the kind of trust between the board and security teams that perhaps co-op had? So maybe in one word, there are so many other ones, but if any of you can take that.
I'll let Tunde take that.
Okay. So I think the thing is, it's that top-down approach is the board should dictate the tone of security in the organization. And once they do that, and we say your risk culture, the culture of the organization, once the organization, and this is the biggest mistake any organization can make, is one rule for the board, another rule for them. So once the team sees that not only the board leads from the front, they have to lead from the front. So, for example, if we expect a clear desk policy as an organization, right, then it has to be from top, from the CEO down. If you have an organization where the CEO says, oh, the clear desk policy is only for the staff, then that organization will lose trust, will lose the face. Does that make any sense? And the security team should also have the backing and should know that they will get backed up by the board. And that is how they can build that relationship, that trust relationship. They know that they will always get the backing of the board as long as they follow what the policy and the strategy of the organization states.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. That was brilliant. Yes. Follow-up questions from Ms. Paul Anthony Scary. And I think this is a multiple question in one. Is what tools or technologies help detect, this is a brilliant question, attacks early enough to enable pulling the plug? That's one aspect of the question. And the second says, how do you balance the risk of shutting down critical systems with the risk of a cyber attack spread? So there are two loaded questions in one. Sure. I don't know how you want to share it.
Yeah, so let me have a go at this, and then Tunde can support. So there are a number of tools and technologies that organizations would normally use for early attack detection, right? So there's intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, which I think is now known as intrusion detection and prevention systems. The intrusion detection system will basically help detect potential threats and provide alerts when these threats are identified. Your intrusion protection, IPS, will help detect and block suspicious traffic, right? There are a number of other things. So up until recently, organizations had a lot of reliance on things like antivirus and stuff. Organizations are now moving to what is known as endpoint detection and response tools, EDR. And these this EDR, endpoint detection and response, basically monitors endpoint for suspicious behavior, suspicious traffic, and allows for very quick response. So if an end user device has been identified, if suspicious traffic has been identified on an end user device, then it will be easy to isolate that device. So ultimately, if that device has been compromised, isolating it will then prevent that cyber criminal from laterally moving across the entire organization's network, if you know what I mean. I think the other question was,
how do you balance the risk of shutting down critical system?
Okay, so balance the risk of, so one of the very first things that an organization will need to do before anything is a risk-based approach will need to be adopted, right? So predefined, Tunde mentioned playbooks earlier on. Predefined response playbooks will need to be drafted, and these playbooks will definitely identify what needs to be done when an incident happens. So in trying to balance shutting down a system and minimizing disruption, a risk-based approach will have to be adopted, right? There are a number of things that can be taken into consideration. So earlier on, we mentioned the gold, silver, bronze structure, right? Before an incident happens, that gold, silver, bronze structure would have to be identified. That gold, silver, bronze structure will be will be involved in that decision making as to whether the plug should be pulled or not. And so when, sorry, my screen just went blank for a second. So when you say, how do you balance the risk of shutting down critical systems with the risk of cyber attack spreading? It has to be a risk-based approach.
Correct.
Absolutely, 100%. And of course, that will be driven as part of that playbook, which defines the gold, silver, and bronze activities.
Thank you so much. I believe that answers and satisfies the question here. One more from him, if I'm right, is that what a practical, very good question, what are practical steps to establish clear incident management role, like gold, just like you said, bronze, team? Okay. And how often should incident management plans be tested or updated?
Okay, so let me take the second half, the how often. Incident response plans are usually tested at least once a year, because as you can imagine, it's a very delicate exercise. It needs to be planned properly. And so usually incident response plans are tested once a year. However, there are situations where you have to test it more than once. So say we've just tested our incident response plan today, right? The expectation is that we'll now come back and test it again this time next year. If an incident happens between now and next year, right, and there were failings, those failings will need to be addressed as part of that plan, and that plan will then need to be retested. So there might be situations where you might have to test your incident response plan more than once in a year, but the usual scenario is that the incident response plan should be tested at least once a year. So so the other question, the question has gone off screen.
Okay, this is it.
So what practical steps to establish clear incident management roles? So in order to establish those kind of roles, one of the first things you need to define each role and its responsibilities. So we spoke about the gold team, the bronze team, the silver team. So the gold team is usually strategic, like I said before, your senior execs. The silver team will usually be your head of department, so your head of IT, and then the bronze team are the operational guys. You need to identify and assign individuals to those teams. And one of the key things, especially in terms of an incident, and when you think about it, if an incident happens and there are no clearly defined plans or communication or escalation channels, there will be a lot of chaos. So in defining those teams, one of the very important things that needs to be done is the development and the communication of an escalation chain. And then Tunde, of course, mentioned playbooks earlier on. Playbooks, run books, at each level are absolutely important. So these are the things that one would normally take into consideration in trying to establish those teams, those roles, the incident management roles.
So how often is it to be tested and updated? Regularly or
Yes,
quarterly?
I took the second part of the question first. So it's
All
the,
right.
the plans are usually tested annually. But of course, if an incident happens in between and failings are identified or for some reason the plan needs to be updated, then that plan will need to be tested again. But as a bare minimum, the incident response plan needs to be tested annually.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, just one more question. But before then, one of our listener, Darishana, says cybersecurity should be a strategic responsibility, but everyone should take ownership. Very brilliant. Thank you so much.
Very, very good shout.
Yeah, and your secure by design initiative is a fantastic idea. Thank you so much, Maya Tech. All right, let's go on Facebook. Let's take this from Facebook. They said, how do we foster a culture where everyone sees cybersecurity as their responsibility?
You want to take
because it appears
Yeah,
it's nobody's responsibility.
I'll take it. It's top. Yeah, it's a top down, right?
Yeah.
Top down, and that's why when our students go for interview, this is an example of the question we ask, right? How does risk culture, the culture within your organization, right? Is it an organization where everyone feels responsible? So everyone should see responsibility as their responsibility, and that is typically driven by the approach, the policies, the acceptable use policy, the training and awareness the organization would give to their employees, right? And not only that, you also you foster an environment where people will not only see that they're responsible and not scared to point out an issue or risk. So, for example, if someone inadvertently click on a link they shouldn't have clicked on, right? You want to create an environment where that person can pick up the phone and call IT and say, "I have clicked on a link that I shouldn't have done," right? And it's an organizational thing. So how do we foster a culture where everyone is responsible? It has to be from the board. It has to be from the board, and the board needs to evangelize that, make everyone feel comfortable, being able to come forward, and then see it as their respective responsibility.
Yeah, but the tone has to be set from the top.
Lovely. Correct. Thank you so much. I think Paul was very grateful for answers to all the questions he raised. That must be about 6 questions in one. Thank you so much for Paul. Thank you so much, Paula. Anthony Skerrit, wherever you are joining us from, that was a brilliant participation from you, and also from answers from well-established, experienced professional, in the field of cybersecurity. One last question, and that will be what's that? So how do we? No, we've talked about that. Where is it? Okay, this is it. He said, let's take that from YouTube. He said that will cybersecurity become part of how companies are rated or valued by the public or financial institutions? I think Mr. Tunde were so much passionate discussing that in terms of
101%. Of course, it will, right?
Yeah.
Again, we've said, in fact, regulators now, in the regulators, they assess, they check the infrastructure, their cyber parts of organizations. So they're already doing that anyway. And then when you look at their reports, right, you'll find out that cybersecurity reports will become a big part of that. When you're talking of the BCP the incident management, regulators want to see that. So will it become part of how companies are rated and valued by the public? Yes. And I'll throw the question back to you, right? If you have an organization, right, that have been breached, right, not only once, not only twice, would you invest your money in that organization? The answer will come no. And that's the answer. So will it become? Of course, it already is, and it will continue to grow. And that is why organizations have to see cyber, right, as what can give them the competitive advantage, right? And I guess that's the essence of the discussion tonight.
Yeah. And I think I'll just add to that. The case study that we presented, Apple, actually answers that question.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen. That was brilliant presentation. Actually, perhaps the longest of all the live masterclass we have ever held. Well, we'll see the implication of cybersecurity approach to how that happened. But a shout out to our IT. Ayo is very fantastic. Make the whole journey tonight smooth and beautiful. It's working behind the scene, and it's really helping us to navigate through questions and, of course, through the slides. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And to those who have joined us from Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, we really want to appreciate your attendance. We, encourage. I encourage by your participation and your comment. Thank you so much. Yes, we are bringing this early July masterclass to an end. Permit me to give these guest speakers one final word each, because I always like to say that if there's anything at all you want to say or you want to do, if there is only one word you want to encourage or leave with any business or entrepreneur or individual in the field of cybersecurity, what would that be, Mr. Bolaji?
Sorry, I missed that. Sorry.
If there's any one word, one thing you want to say to any business or entrepreneur or individual in the field of cybersecurity, what would that word be?
Oh, wow. You put me on the spot there. Well, so if there's anything I will say about cybersecurity, I think we've covered it during the course of the class. It should not be seen as a task. It should be seen as an enabler. And I think that ties in with the topic of what we discussed today.
Wonderful. And to you, same question to you, Mr. Tunde.
You use cybersecurity to gain competitive advantage. So I'll use the word competitive advantage any day, anytime.
Lovely. Yeah. And I'd like to add that people need to start seeing it not as a cost, but actually as an asset. And it's not a liability. It's just like insurance. People think that they are paying premium, and to them it's a liability. It's actually an asset, because the only industry or element that will give you money when you are down is that the same insurance that you are cutting off, if you understand what I mean. But yes, I can see that the only device that can protect you from losing all that you have ever worked for or labored for is the security that you put around an edge of your business and your personal life. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We're so grateful for this section. Thank you. And there are so many key takeaways from this one. So thank you for attending and participating in this month masterclass. We hope you find it stimulating and educational. The insight and strategies shared today can help you build business resilience and adapt, enabling you to move forward even after facing significant challenges. Yes, those who have suffered some kind of security breach and data breach as well, I think there are still hope for them, and they can quickly start things and making things right. The world needs the best version of you and your business. If you have any questions, comments, or inquiries, please visit our website at www.skillsmindset.com and leave us a message. I can promise you, if you go there, it's secured, so you're in the right place. So one of our team members will reach out to you. We also encourage you to subscribe and follow us on our various platforms so you don't miss any episode of our podcast and monthly masterclass. I urge you to approach every moment with courage and optimism. Keep pushing your dreams with knowledge and unwavering passion. Until next time, take care and stay focused. Goodbye for now. Thank you, gentlemen. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
The world is changing, and so does change. But the mind has the potential to capture the changing world and make every change count. At Skills Mindset, the leading global skills, strategy and corporate development company, we believe that the mind has the potential of transforming the man from obscurity to prominence. It's the reason why we make skills our business. At Skills Mindset, we stand for change, for development and for success. We challenge, we inspire and we lead. With Skills Mindset, your limit is just the beginning. Welcome to Skills Mindset. For more information about the great service we provide, please visit our website on www.skillsmindset.com or give us a call on our UK number on 07957 676 193. Better still, send us an email on info@skillsmindset.com. Skills Mindset. Challenging limits, maximizing opportunities.
Yes.